Welcome to the first lecture of the Spring Lecture Series. Thanks for coming. And we are really, really excited to present Jae Kim, an architect from South Korea that we had a chance to convince to come over here because he was in Greenville. So it was a great opportunity through Joseph that we could do that. And I'm going to have Joseph say a few words about him. But first of all, I would like to give just a hint or a basic bio information about the speaker. Okay. So Jae is professor of architecture at the Hanyang University in Seoul, in South Korea, and the principal of JKAR. He studied architectural engineering in that same university, and later architecture and urbanism at the MIT in Boston, where he was awarded the Imre Halas Thesis Prize for excellence in his master's thesis. Jae has also received the Architectural Master Prize and the special mention for the Architizer A+ Award in 2020, and the KIA, the Korean Institute of Architects, a special prize and the Grand Prize from the Korean Wooded Design Awards in 2019. Also, the honorable mention from Red Dot Design Award in 2014. And Jae, finally, is also the recipient of the National Research Grants given from 2015 to 2018. So we are really, you can see that he will be an outstanding contribution to our understanding of not only timber structures and tectonics, which I know there's a lot of faculty and students interested on, but also taking that into, like Joseph is going to tell us about, into a much more complex and interesting field. Okay. So Joseph, you can.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so it's a real honor and privilege to introduce Jae Kim. Jae is a dear friend of mine who I met while we were both studying at MIT in graduate studies. And one thing I would say is when we were both students there at MIT, when you look at the work, there's a bunch of student work that looks good and looks polished. But whenever I saw work that Jae produced, it always seemed to be of a different level of maturity and refinement than everyone else. It was not something that was easily to articulate, but it's something you could instantly see and feel. And fortunately, we built a friendship over the years, and he's not only an incredible architect, but he's also incredibly humble and also his harshest critic. Whenever I've heard him lecture twice in the last 10 years, and whenever he lectures, he's always the first one to critique his own work. And it reminds me a lot of someone named Donald Shaw, and he wrote about the reflective practitioner, where you both reflect in action, but you also reflect over one's own body of work, over your professional experiences. And I see that happening for Jae again and again, where he's constantly trying to figure out how he can understand how he contributes to the intellectual discourse of architecture, but also how he also creates his own discourse internally with his personal interests. And the other thing I would say is, with doing that, especially understanding architecture as an intellectual discourse that builds on itself, he looks at architecture and history and tectonics and construction means and methods of construction, but he doesn't just look at them as things that are precedents or case studies or as things of the past, but he tries to understand how the past can yield new futures. So we can think about tectonics, tools as developing over time, but for Jae, time is also a tool. So literally, how does history become a generative design device? And you see that throughout some of the work you'll see today, in particular with timber construction. And again, it's a real honor and privilege to be introducing him, and I'm excited to see the work. And with that, Jae Kim.
Thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much. I'm very overwhelmed by introduction. I'm so glad to be here because I can see a real person in the lecture. I'm so glad I'm in the real room for the lecture. I mean, because of pandemic, and also in my country, when I was invited by a lecturer, normally I'm mostly through the Zoom or online, but I miss the mutual interconnection or also the excitement in the indoor space. That's why I'm so glad to see you guys. Yeah, thanks for inviting me. And yeah, I'm going to show you my research and the project I haven't done for, I think, 7 or 8 years. So I will introduce my research first, a background So why I started the research and the design work. And then I'm gonna introduce my research, and also I give you the the presentation about 4 projects I have done. So as Joseph told, I like to start with criticize my the previous works. Yeah, this is in countries in Asia, I mean, it's relatively let's say easier to get the real commission because we are still under developing stages. So, and also the Asian people, including Korean, they always want new and very trendy thing. So they just use the building and 10 and 20 years, and then demolition, they want new one. So yeah, so luckily, when I was 10 years ago, I was commissioned 2 or 3 projects, and now I think it's built. So after early stage of my career as an architect, and after finishing some works, as image shows, I have to criticize my own project. I questioned if these work have anything special, and also this work is differentiated from other architects' project, but I couldn't answer clearly. This may not be just my problem. I think it becomes hard to say what is good architecture in these days, because trends of formal language dominates certain period of time to architects globally. And also we might too much affected by architectural images from online, such as Pinterest and ArchDaily, etc. So everything becomes same and similar, or then change to another trends very quickly. So I needed different inspiration. I need to liberate myself from the images and trends of architecture these days. So I started not to believe if I didn't really see. So that's why I start travel around. I mean, for example, the Peter Zumthor's temple, it gives me a different stimulus. I was inspired from this building because that is rooted in the context of nature. So because I can see true relationship among space, material, structure. So I believe this is the, maybe it's a true architecture. I brought my family to, the Florida, and I was very inspired by this observatory tower. That is the Lookout Tower, probably in Everglades Park in Florida. I was very inspired by the form truly created by the human movement. You can see the lamps here. I also love the materiality of concrete to contrast architecture with preserved nature. Also, I was inspired by Salt Storage in the west coast of South Korea, built 100 years ago. The storage form made by slightly slanted column and slightly slanted wall is truly created by the structural reason to resist the pressure from salt inside. And then slowly, I was becoming to be motivated by historic buildings. I like the genuine form created by the relation of structure, material, and the function, and also I love the intention to harmonize man-made structure and nature as well. So, I mean, these historic buildings, historic monuments gave me totally different experiences and inspiration that made me decide to study further for East Asian architecture. It could be, it sounds really bit strange. My background about architecture, I think, is more about, Western history of architecture, even in Korea. So it's kind of shame to me. I only took 1 or 2 classes of Korean and Asian architecture class, but 3 and 4 Western historic class and modern architecture class, and also at MIT, everything is about the Western, the history. So yeah, I mean, this is the way to see myself, way to find myself through, the buildings from my cultural background. But before starting the research, I listed down questions about East Asian architecture. So firstly, why, they choose the timber wood for their architecture. This question came to mind when I saw, this illustration, History of Architecture, Sir, British, the historian, the Bannister Fletcher. He drew this illustration 1 century ago. I mean, if we look at this illustration, only the Asian architecture they use timber, but other things are or the masonry or the brick things. So I have a question: why Asian people they choose the wood for their architecture? But I know Western architecture also has the history of wood. But I mean, I think this diagram is about the monuments or representative buildings in the certain era. The second question is why does Asian timber structure have a big loop? A big loop is one of the most symbolic parts in Asian architecture, as Yorun Uchon illustrates in his sketch of Zodiac magazine in 1962. So at that time he traveled around the Asia, China, and Japan. Right after he won the Sydney Opera House competition, he won the competition in 1961, as far as I know. And most importantly, why did Asian people make bracketing system? Post and beam timber structure of East Asian architecture is regarded as efficient system. But however, why did East Asian invent beautiful but it seems over decorated looking wooden bracket system? Does it have any reason? So I mean, to find this answer of the questions, and I did a research trip. This map shows the location of wooden monuments in East Asia I visit in recent years. So northern China and southern China and Korea and Japan, I mean, each region has different, the kind of the trajectory of evolution in wooden architecture. So I visited temples, numerous temples and other buildings that have survived for the centuries. Sometimes, sometimes some of buildings are more than 1,000 years old. After research trip and after research trip and studies, I found the answer of the questions. For the first question, I found the reason East Asian prefer to use timber. I think because that has its adaptability. For example, here, by virtue of the advantage of structure, East Asian architecture can be adapted to different environment of diverse regions. This is Japanese is tea house or pavilion, you can say. So in hot and humid climate in Japan, it has more opened for the ventilation, but it still has the post and beam structure. And dry and cold climate in northern China. So the people they put the additive non-structural wall between wooden columns. Sometimes they put the renders between columns, so this can function as the insulation wall. In some buildings, the columns of timber structure become the pilotis to make pathway under the building. But sometimes the post and beam structure can respond to different seasons. Here, this is the Bangchojong Pavilion in Korea. In winter, they use the floor heating on the ground level. But in summer, they use the operable walls to make the better the ventilation. So Korea, I think, is like the winter has very cold and dry. The summer is very hot and humid. So it has the two different the climate in the region. And what's the reason of second question? Why big loops? The big loop of East Asian architecture was, I think, it's made by the practical reason to protect wooden columns from rainwater, but also it has a symbolic meaning as well. So symbolic meaning of the big loop is often reinterpreted to the modern buildings, like this building. I'm going to explain this building later. But does it have to be the big? Why is it so big? I think it's because of the design principles of Asian city and building. So Asian city and buildings, they always have a south and north and south the axis. So the longer side of building, it always has to be the main facade. So I mean, from the front of the building, of the longer side, you can see the sloped surface of the loop. So that's why the loop is always distinguished from the main facade. But I think the European architecture also had a big loop as well. But in European architecture, I think the shorter side, that is normally it is the main facade. So we cannot see the the surface of the loop. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Yeah. So this is different things. The Asian architecture is not only architecture to have a big loops. And also, what's the original bracket system? The wooden system to connect the column and heavy loop structure, that becomes huge attraction to me. To understand the original bracket system, I went to Shanxi province in northern China, where the oldest wooden structure have been remained. The oldest wooden structure was built in 7th century in Japan. That's the oldest one remaining. But this grottos, the Yungan grottos, it shows the early evidence of bracket system in 4th century, such as for example here. This is the early example of bracket system. It's much simpler than now. And also in Korean tomb located in North Korea, so we cannot go there right now, but we have the pictures. So in the tomb, there is a painting of the bracket system wooden structure. So we can also see the early the version of the bracket system in 5th centuries. In 7th century, the Japanese constructed a structure with the deeper eaves. I think it's probably due to the heavy rainfall in summer. And the Horyuji Temple is the oldest wooden buildings remained. And the Fo Guangxi Temple in 8th centuries shows a bracing element, which function as leverages so that eaves can be even more deeper. And another pagoda constructed in 11th century shows diversity of bracket system. This building has so many different types of bracket system according to the function of a structural function. For example, the eaves and loops as bending moments. In this location, they use the bracing part here, bracing elements, but only the part to support the floors. They didn't use the bracing part. So, this building has so many, diverse types of bracket systems. And also Todaiji Temple, south gate of Todaiji Temple, built in the 13th century, has very unique bracket system. I think there is not many research about the reason why they connected these two, this bracket system horizontally. I think it's because of the earthquake. This is my hypothesis. I guess the Kenjo Tange also was inspired by the kind of tectonics of all the structure as well. So after field trip, I illustrate my analysis to explain its way of assembling and joinery. So I'm keep doing this research. Hopefully, I can publish this research in this year. But last year I said the same thing, so no one knows. Yeah. Yeah, so that's the types of diversity of rocket system in Asia. So everything, I mean, from the outside it looks very similar and same, but actually this totally, is very different according to the regions and carpenters. Yeah, so geographic, the difference of East Asia, probably I think the result in the diversity of wooden rocket systems. So yeah, I made this diagram. I call this historical evolution of wooden rocket system in East Asia. The rocket system can be classified two. The first thing is a stacking system. Here I think generally this system is common in Korea. I think it's because we don't have earthquakes, so we don't have to, use the super complicate, the system. I think the rocket system without dressing, that is the simple. And Japan, they choose highly complicate the bracketing system. I guess that is the result from the earthquake or their very unique environment, I guess. Yeah, so based on my research, my next goal was to create my own the system and apply that to the project. So I think the column is a basic element of the building as shown in historic differences, like Gothic buildings and East Asian buildings. So I tried to create my own, tree column like trees. So far, I have 6 trees. So this is the first version. I think I made this one, I think six years ago. Main idea was, recreating and simplifying the original system to be optimized for the digital fabrication. And the second tree aims to develop a connecting methodology between roof and the columns. And that is the radical version. I just try to, kind of maximize my creativity, but practically it's very hard to make, so I kind of give up to develop this version. And the first tree is the first project with a real scale. So it's a 1:2 scale model. I made this tree in my office. So this tree consists of 1,000 pieces. This is the 5th version of tree. 3 years ago, actually 4 years ago, I was selected as a finalist of Young Architects program of Seoul. You guys have an American version, that is MoMA PS1, and so we have the Korean version as well. So I proposed the 5th tree, and this is model of the 5th. This is the 6th version of tree. I installed this in my school. And I'm still making trees. So this is the last, after this series of, the experiments, I had the chance to use the research for real commissions. These days, I'm trying to be very picky picky is not probably appropriate words. I try to select, I try to choose, I try to meet very good clients to understand, what I'm doing. I think it's a very unique culture of architecture in Asia. As I told you in the beginning of the lecture, everything is, client wants the very quick process of design, very quick construction. So quality is always a problem. So luckily I have 4 projects so far, but unfortunately I don't have a project in Seoul because the clients in Seoul, they don't like my project, and only the countryside. And also the three projects among these four, I haven't shown this project before. So this is, I'm very happy to show this project to you guys. First project, I think I already finished that 3 years ago. So I publicized, I did lecture many times. But other trees, I think this is the first time. And House of Three Trees. So the site is the middle of South Korea. So this is South Korea. This is North Korea. I think you know. Yeah. Actually, Seoul is very close from North Korea. You might be surprised. The site used to be a very small village, but the highway cut down, that's divide the village. So I mean, this part is still surviving, but that is becoming the abandoned right now. The client, but they choose this site because this is the hometown of the dam. The boundary of the site is unusual comparing to American the housing lots. So this very erratic shape, but I thought that could be another opportunity to use my design methodology. So this shape, the footprint of house is generated geometrically by three trees. So spontaneously the house has hexagonal footprint, and this is the view drone view from the top on the construction. And the irregular hexagonal shapes also result in the diverse appearance of the house. And this is view from the north, and view from the south, and view from the east. Yeah, sometimes I have a question about why I made this thin and floating roof. So actually, the typical rural house in Korea that gives the inspiration. The rural houses built in 1790s in Korea, they had a flat roof here. I mean, they had a flat roof, but now they have a serious the rainwater leakage problem. So people, they attached additive roof made of sandwich panels, but it gives me some kind of the inspiration. So this roof of old houses inspires the design of the thin and floating roof shown in this sketch, and then it became the drawings. This photo during the construction, and after when it's done. I mean, this area, only 3 houses remained, and this one, brick house, and the house I designed, and this house, actually this house, I took this photo, and then house was behind of me, but this house is also abandoned last year, so only 2 houses remained. But the people love that because this is like it's work as a light house in this area. So at night, it shows the right inside. So in terms of structure, I had several options. I start with a single tree first, and then roof structure without trees. But I thought that lost something from my the initial intentions. And then finally, I ended up with the 3 trees. 3 trees are also minimum requirement of support the roof. By the 2 trees, I think it's structurally not stable. I couldn't find any structural engineer. So my role includes structural calculation engineering as well. But luckily, we have digital tools, and also I had many mock-ups. So I was very convinced about this structure. So that's why I can I could overcome kind of obstacle. It's the initial, the sketch about the sections. This photo is about, it's not touching. So basically, roof is not attached to the enclosed wall. The wall just works as, insulation, and it's non-structural wall. So finally, tree structure comprise more than 4,000 pieces. It's more detailed drawings of assemblage of trunk of trees. And construction suddenly became a problem because carpenters and laborers, they were not familiar with this structure. So we made the instruction like Lego block. So me and my staffs and my students, we have to engage deeply in the construction. So I want to show the short video showing the construction. Yeah, he was very confused. He's a really good carpenter, but he's super confused. And then they became really good. I didn't use any nails and the glues here. This is the photo of inside. I sometimes, I always compare the trees. This is, the man-made tree, and this is the real tree. So change of time can be, recognized through the sunlight movements from the gap between the loop and wall. Sometimes, sunlight is falling into the, the inside of the house. In this way, I think a tree it becomes like a forest. The tree structure of the house is solely composed of wooden joinery. So the construction methodology without using, additive fasteners like nails and glue, I think it's not only intended to follow traditional methodology, but to show the quality of wooden structure. So I have a video. I think it makes you understand this project better. Okay. Yeah, the second project. This project, I have to find the name, but so I just named of this project, the Pavilion of Floating Rice, but I need to make a new name probably after the construction. Anyway, this is under construction. I got this commission 2 years ago, and then I took a design for a year. They start construction the last summer, and then contractor was very frustrated, so he just stopped the construction in 2 months, and then but he was really good, really good person. So he was trying to find the kind of a methodology and efficient way of construction, and then he came back, and then now on they are doing the construction, resume the construction. The city of Jinju, the site is the Jinju. Jinju is south is in southern part of South Korea. This city is kind of isolated due to the difficult transportation from Seoul. So by your train, I think it takes 3.5 years. By your car, it takes 5 not years, hours. And, sorry, yeah. By your car, probably 5 hours. Probably 5 hours is gonna be okay to you guys, right? I mean, America is big, but to us, 5 hours is no way, no way by your car. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, but because of due to this kind of isolation, the city can keep their cultural identity. I love this city because it has its own culture. It's very unique culture. So this image shows 2 most famous things in the city. The first thing is the pavilion. This is Chokseongru pavilion that originally built in 14th centuries, and then it's burned down during the Korean War, and then we reconstruct this one, rebuilt this one in 1960s. And this is a landmark of the city. And also second famous thing is this event. So they have a floating rice event, and that is the annual event. Yeah, so that's why this is actually city that hired me. So city wants to have something, a very special building to symbolize these events. So this is old. They have a new town, but this is old town. So this is the Chokseongru Pavilion I just showed you, and this is the site. Can you see the small dots? Yeah, this is floating rights. Yeah. The site is in urban area, but surrounded by nature and mountain and rivers. But this is very good site. Korea is very urbanized, so it's very hard to find this kind of the location in the city. Yeah, so I was very appreciate. The old city of Jinju has 3 important architecture, the legacy. This is first one, and they also have 2 very important modern buildings designed by 2 most influential modern architects of Korea. One is Sugun Kim, and another is Jung-up Kim. The Sugun Kim, he designed this museum, Jinju National Museum, in 1984, and the Jung-up Kim, he designed the Cultural Arts Center in 1988. Actually, Jung-up Kim was apprentice of Le Corbusier. You can see he's a Corbusier and Jung-up Kim. He's Balkrishna. I don't know how to pronounce it. Balkrishna Dash. Yeah, actually, he recently won the Pritzker Prize. I think 3 years ago. I guess 4 years ago. Yeah. In addition, these buildings, they're gonna have a new performing arts center across the river here, and they are renovating the old train station to the parks. So the city has kind of the master planning to revitalize the old town by using this axis. So they have something here, but they don't have, they have nothing here. So that's why they, have very, they have something, something, yeah. So so there are the three buildings, three great buildings, masterpieces actually to represent different eras. So especially these two buildings. So I can see the concept of the effort of architects to recreate the idea of traditional architecture. So my aim is how what's my way? What is my own methodology to reinterpret traditional buildings for not through the contemporary language, and also I try to make the building should be the differentiate from these two modern buildings as well. So as always, I try to find the inspiration from the historical buildings. So pavilion consists of three parts. The first part is elevated platform by pilotis, and second part is wide open space to the nature. The third one is floating roofs. So that principle was the beginning of the design, my design. That is the one of the first the scheme. Elevated platform and wide open space and the floating the loops. So this is final version. And section also shows the three the principles about pavilion I learned from traditional buildings. So it has two buildings. This one is a restroom, and this one. Actually, I tried to put this restroom here, but it actually ruined the full concept of the structure and interior quality. So that's why I separate the restroom from the main building. So at the beginning, I was trying to make four the glass walls, but these days the regulation of the earthquake is getting very strict now. So the structural engineering, he asked me, we have to have the shear wall to resist the retinal pulses from the earthquake. So that's why. But I thought that could be another opportunity. So I'm going to explain that later. So it has access path here, and in front of the building, it has a bike path along the river. So this is main entry to the building. This building it has literally no function. This is pavilion. This is actually waiting area, we call that. But we need something to to get the building permission. So we said this is waiting area for something. But actually, this building has no problem. So axonometry of the buildings. So I have 6 trees here now. From the access pathway, so people hardly can see the tree structure, and so maybe they can have a more curiosity about the building inside, and then the end of the pathway, they can see the tree structure and the terrace area. This is the view from the south, interior view, and the counter. I'm also designing the furniture with former student of mine. He was an architect. He used to be an architect. He worked in the biggest firm in Korea, and then he quit. Now he opened his own the furniture company. He said, the furniture is much exciting than architecture. I don't understand, but anyway. Yeah. It's a view of inside too. Interior view in the sunset. The view across the river. Yeah, this view is the most favorite image to the the mayor of the city, and yeah, he was very excited by this with the floating events and the pavilion. So I also have a short animation of that. Yeah. Yeah, so now project is under construction. So we made, me and my staffs and students, we made mock-ups a month ago. Every piece is non-standardized, so it's very hard to assemble. So we are now thinking. I didn't put this music, but my student put this music. So we try to use the holographic methodology for the construction. Yeah. Oh. Okay. Yep, it's the photos of construction from the construction site. Now, elevated platform is done, and yeah, the roof is almost done. So actually, a week ago, we put the waterproofing sheet on the roof. Yeah, so construction of trees will be started soon because of weather. Korea is very is cold in the winter. So contractors and carpenters, they want to enclose a building first because of the weather, and then they start to build a tree inside. So roof is now is standing by jack support, but 6 trees will replace those support soon. So maybe next week, maybe after I come back. They are waiting for me, and so I have to put the trees again. Yeah, so this project, and also it didn't have the name, so I made this name actually a week ago, for this lecture. Yeah. So now actually 2 weeks ago we got a building permit, so it's gonna be construction will be start hopefully March or April. So Gwangju is a commuter town of the near Seoul. I think it's the 30 minutes distance from Seoul. In this city, the historical heritage and the green area, mountains, and the urban area is coexisting. So yeah, and sometimes I joke to my staffs, we are almost to Seoul. So maybe next year we can do project in Seoul. Yeah. Anyway, And the site is right next to the Naman Sansong Fortress, which is the UNESCO heritage. So this is the site location. This is the fortress of a UNESCO site. And this is the new town. And this is the image of the fortress. And these two images are the site area. But that has a really beautiful the view. Because the site is in the park, national park, and the UNESCO heritage, it has very strict building permit process. So the new construction is not allowed at all in any circumstance. Only if an existing building needs to be replaced by a new one, but it needs to have exactly same areas of old buildings. So previously, it had a small, 3 buildings. One is house and the storage and the barn. But the city, they forced me to keep number of buildings and the same number of area. So it was mandatory to have 3, masses for the housing, 3 separate masses for the housing. The client at the beginning, he was very frustrated because it's a small building. I think it's 1,000 square feet. It's small. It's less than 1,000 square feet, total area of 3 buildings. But he has to have just 3 small buildings. So, but I persuade him. I mean, it could be the better opportunity to have a very interesting and unique the house. And so it's the early sketches. I was trying to, how to configure these 3 the volumes and how to have a special meaning for the in-between spaces, decks. Yeah, this is the final version. I tried to different types of the composition of 3 buildings, and I finally end up with simplest the method. So the house has 3 the volumes. So this is the main building. It's the living room and 1 bedroom. It's a small, the medium-sized bedroom, and this is a small bedroom. But interesting is here. It's not actually this masses, but I think it's this in-between space. So this the living room and the bedroom. It has the relationship through this the how can I say, the in-between space. So axonometry. View from the entry. Yeah, you can see through interior space and the in-between space from this view. You probably see the photo about Japanese house or Asian house. You can see the sequence of rooms. You may see that the images, the small rooms, series of small rooms. So I try to reinterpret that idea of spaces in traditional houses in Asia. So we call this space, this maru. Maru is like very ambiguous. It has no function, but it has no function as well as multi-function at the same times. Yeah. The living room, the hallway, the bedroom. Yes. This one doesn't have video. Yeah. And the last project is a house for remedy. Yeah, that one is only still in the building permit process for more than 1 year. So I'm going to explain why it took so long time. The location is at the Gyeongju. Gyeongju was the the old capital city more than 1,000 years ago in Silla dynasty. And also Gyeongju has five historical zones designated as UNESCO heritage sites. So every site I do is, super typical, UNESCO or traditional thing related to something like that. And this map was made in 18th century, 1798. So this one is old fortress, and you can see the ancient tombs, more than 1,000 years ago. And site is actually here, yeah. So this is a photo of ancient tombs, and these days. And this is, the satellite photo showing the current situation. And this square, it shows the boundary of old fortress. Now, I think that was demolished. And this is the site, the location. The client is an Oriental medical doctor, and he has maintained these visions in Gyeongju for 5th generation. So this is a family driven, clinic for 150 years. So, but, existing Oriental clinic was notified of relocation due to the excavation of cultural properties. So this is the location of ancient tombs. Here is the existing clinic, but they want to, the city, the National Heritage Administration, they want to expand the heritage site further. So that's why my client, he was notified to move his clinic. But the new site also has the historic heritage as well. It has 5 tombs of Shilla dynasty, and this is the how can I say, the well, old well, that is also nearby the site. And this site must go through a very difficult process to obtain a building permit due to the heritages around the site. Especially, it must pass the Committee of Cultural Heritage Administration. So I passed that committee the last April. So, but we are still in that process of building permit. Hopefully, we can get the permission this March or April. So this is site, and the east side of site, there are 3, the ancient tombs. Here, this is ancient tombs. This is also ancient tombs. That is a temple, and also left side, the west side of the site. So new road is under construction, so it's gonna be open soon. So it took more than 5 years to design this project, and but this image showed, the changes and schemes of design. So I changed design sometimes, after conversation with the client. Sometimes, requests from the city during the building permit process. So it have had the big change for every, months, several months. So this one is first scheme, 2017, the second scheme, 2018, and October 2018. This is almost last scheme, 2 years ago. And yeah, this master plan, this is the final scheme. So the project has two different the courtyard and frontyard and courtyard. So this courtyard has more intimate and more quiet, and it has that kind of atmosphere. And this front yard has more public, and also it has a garden, formal garden as well. So that the rendering shows the atmosphere of the courtyard. This one is the front yard, and you can see the pavilion. I also used the tree ideas to at this pavilion as well. And it has basement, but basement has the sunken area, dry area. So the dry area here and the basement. Even if that is basement, it has the natural sunlight as well. So it can have the quality. So this is a storage, and it's the room related to the Oriental medicines. And this is kind of exhibition, small exhibition room for the history of Oriental, the clinic, and the small kitchen and the gallery here. It's a section of the cafe. Yeah, this is the kitchen in the basement. Yeah, I mean the reason why I put this kitchen in the basement, it has same reason as with Jinju project. I separate the building. I separate restroom. I made the restroom separate from the main building because the restroom was a deal breaker. So kitchen, it has to be also, because of that, sometimes the Korean food, it makes, some kind, how can I say, yeah, so I mean, the chef, Korean chef, they prefer to have a more like enclosed kitchen. But it's not very fit to the design idea, design intention of the cafe. So that's why I put the kitchen in the basement. So this is the section of gallery, and it's a section of the clinics. So I used the 3 different types of structure which reinvents a traditional, the system. The first thing is for the clinic area. It's very simple and efficient structure. And second thing is for the cafe, I recreate the bracket system here. It's a view of the cafe side. And I also do the different kind of challenge of structure. This space is not only for the gallery, but also event space. That's why I thought of more special and different structure. The client, he think to use this space for the wedding chapel or something, the different way. So, view from the main gate, the courtyard. View of courtyard through the front yard, and the reflecting pond in front of cafe. The pavilion, the facade of cafe. The garden and pavilion. So yeah, we tested the structure. We made a 1:2 scale mock-ups here. Yeah, this is last one. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
We got that. Hopefully we can. Hopefully the people that is actually looking at seeing this in Zoom and in the recording will actually see that. So well, you guys know what I was going to use that microphone for, right? So I have a lot of questions. I think it was an incredibly rich lecture talking about so many different things, right? and talking about things that are very similar than the ones that we talk and do in Clemson, but at the same time so different. So I think it was a fascinating lecture. So I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions. Otherwise, I can just ask it myself. So who wants to start? Who has a question? Okay, John?
Yeah, so in the beginning you talked about how architecture today tends to follow what we see on the internet, and you end up with all these buildings that have the same kind of style look to them. So I thought it was interesting because in architecture school, one of the first things we always do is do precedent studies, where we all hop on Pinterest or Instagram and just scroll and find things that we like. So how do we kind of get away from that and stop choosing projects just because we like their visual appearance and focus more on precedents based on the program and moods and the emotions that space is creating?
Okay. Yeah, I think I understand your question, but I have to say this thing first. I haven't had many chance to speak English in my home country for 8 years, so probably I couldn't understand exactly what you're talking about. So if I have answer in totally different direction, I mean, please stop. You say stop. Yeah, or you are wrong. You can say, okay, yeah, that's very hard. Yeah, to me it took 15 years and. What is good image, what is good reference, what is not good reference. But I think just the image these days from online or something, I think that is sometimes very dangerous because when you have no ideas about that. When I have no ideas about design, I just look at the monitor and searching something endlessly, and just by the instinct selection of image, I just use that image to architecture, and next day I regret and try to do different thing again. So I was very frustrated by that process. That's why I try to find something big inspiration to me. That was the timber structure. I just when I start to practice, I just try to make very cool looking buildings, I guess, because the good looking appearance, the cool. Not cool. I think it seems the appearance of building it became very powerful to just people, for example, clients. But I realized that is not very helpful to myself, but as well as the client. So that's why I tried to do more research. So when I came back to Korea, I haven't had any project for 3 and almost 5 years. So I just do the research. And then, after the completion of the, house of 3 trees, and I can, after that, I start to have, commissions. So, yeah, that can be the answer of you. Yeah. No.
Sounds like you're gonna have to spend more time researching.
Yeah, that's true. Research. Yeah, and then you can focus. Yeah, you can find what you really like. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you something.
Yeah.
This is gonna be when we will ask you, and if you can ask yourself that question before you answer it, so the people that are on Zoom and in the recording will get that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, just have a quick comment and now have a question. I mean, first, I think what is really significant about what I saw today is that the work responds to the time in which it was built, and this is kind of answering you a little bit, and the place in which it's built. And I think the idea that buildings become more and more alike and look more and more alike, I think, has a lot to do with maybe your question, but the fact that a lot of architects are neglecting the time and the place. And the reason those two things are different is that it would be simple to say, okay, I'm going to do a distinctly Korean building and then replicate an historic Korean building. But that would then ignore the time. And in this case, it's both time and place, which I think is very, very difficult to do. And when we ask you to do precedent studies, I think first we're trying to get you to learn the history of architecture, but also to learn how to extract what's significant about that project from the time in which
That's
it's
true.
done, and for you to apply that to the new time in which you're going. So a precedent in South America could apply, the principles could be applied today in Korea, right, with the right architect's hands. And I think for me, the first project you showed was the most exciting because you had the least restrictions on you, and you could kind of express that. So maybe that's the way that I would have, the way I viewed this when thinking the same question you have, right? I guess my question after my statement, which is a selfish question, but so much of the work is digitally produced and digitally cut, and you said early in the presentation the reason why it would is because it's so easy to modify, so adaptable. But as soon as we cut wood with a computer, it's no longer adaptable. And I'm sure the carpenters who are experienced or frustrated is because they can't adapt it and because it's pre-cut for them. So my question is, how do you deal with tolerance, cut tolerance in the field when you have thousands of pieces? And I ask because I've never been able to affect that.
Okay, so I mean, I didn't show the. Let me answer the first question. Actually, he did. Yeah. So I didn't. It's related to the comments as well. So I didn't show this image. So the beginning of the research, I criticized this fork, the village. This is kind of replica of. This is not old building. This is a duplication of traditional. But this actually is not very looking traditional, but it's like the modern building. So I criticized this one, and I thought I need to make the totally, not totally new, but I have to recreate. I have to rethink of the traditional building for the new kind of architecture. That's my intention. And also, I need to back to your question. Yeah. So let me 3 questions. I start with the research and side trip with this question because shamefully I didn't have many the knowledge about the East Asian architecture. So this question is about running basic knowledge about the Eastern the East Asian architecture. But in the end, I just tried to focus on one topic, that is the bracket system. Yeah, so yeah, probably there I think you're right, there is a contradiction between these questions and my work because East Asian architecture, it has efficiency of structural system. But as well as at the same time, East Asian architecture, it is contradiction too, because the basic system is simple, but if you look at the roof structure, it is unnecessarily complex. So I have to choose, I can use the 2 totally different things, So I have to choose, I have to focus, one that is the bracket system because that has the kind of potential for the digital, construction, etc. So that's why I choose the bracket system. Yeah, and the tolerance, just time. I just spend so much time to, 0.001 and 0.002. Yeah, that's the only thing. Yeah, yeah. And also another problem is the plywood. Every plywood has, slightly different. Yeah, so you have to find the kind of how can I say? It's not optimization, something like that. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So you had a slide that you showed the practices that you created. Is there like a specific tool that you apply for create those kind of bracket systems that you created?
Oh, actually, I didn't understand you talk about the bracket system. So did you?
Like the 10 trees that you created?
6 trees, you said, or okay. Yeah. No, I mean, this is kind of a trajectory of finding, this is a test. Yeah, this is not the result. Yeah, I just try to have, many different kinds of, test experiments. So that's why it doesn't have any clear one direction. Yeah, for example, this one is, is totally different. I mean, at that time I was deep into the 3D printer, so and also kind of a robotic, cutting, something like that. So that's why I made this one, but it's like super difficult and it's not very efficient. Maybe after that I can try to do develop this scheme, but yeah. So. And after the series of tests, I choose this one that is relatively efficient for the construction, and also it has, and also is more meaning about the bracket system. Yeah. Can it be the answer? Okay.
So the Issei Mingyu Shrine is disassembled every 20 years in Japan.
Hmm.
Do you see, because your system doesn't have any hangers, but every 20 years you see your building being disassembled and reassembled, and is it possible with the joinery system that you have?
You mean are talking about the shrine in Japan? Yeah, yeah, that is interesting question. But the shrine is the you cannot reuse that the structure. Yeah, yeah. But you have to make the new building. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right, right. Yeah. So that's probably difficult. Yeah, difficult to apply that idea to my building.
And the other thing I find interesting about your architecture is the plan geometries are so incredibly simple. It gets such richness out of another way of expressing building. And I find that's true in a lot of Japanese architecture for sure, because I'm more familiar with that. But it's a good lesson for the students to show that you don't have to have complex plan geometries to have really rich and powerful buildings, right? I mean, the buildings are so elegantly simple in how they're organized and created and the spaces that they create, and yet so incredibly rich through the use of the way in which you deal with structure. So I applaud you for that. Good lesson for the students.
Thank you so much.
Harrison, I think you had a question, right? Yeah, I did. One of the things that you mentioned early on in the lecture was the challenge of building in a climate where you have climatological extremes of very dry, cold winters and hot, humid summers. And this kind of goes back to the previous question about tolerances. I was wondering how you manage to deal with the as you travel around and you observe the traits and the weathering of these ancient wooden structures, have you noticed any trends in how really truly ancient wooden structures have fared over thousands of?
Oh, this one I didn't understand at all. Yeah. So I mean, you asked two things, right? The one is the tolerance, probably.
So it's really kind of an extended question. I'm asking how you manage to deal with tolerances that come with climatological changes, and if you've observed interesting weathering phenomena in the ancient structures that are also made of wood.
Can you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So sorry about that. I mean, this is my problem. Yeah.
How
Yeah.
do your system, your laser cutting respond to the brackets? Respond to extreme temperatures, expansion, and
Oh, okay. Okay.
one, and
Yeah.
two, how do you learn of those dynamics, those thermal changes in traditional architecture? How did they do that?
I think let me try to answer the second question first. I think you know the. I don't think wooden structure they can stand forever, right? Especially in extreme weather like Korea. But there is a very interesting, how can I say, quote something, and one of the Japanese architect said, so the Asian architecture and Japanese architecture has kind of a metabolic. I mean, idea of metabolism is like the shrine. They have a building, but after 20 years, they demolished that. They made a new one. They relocated. That's the idea of thing. So I guess I don't think Asian people they intended to make the building forever. Yeah, they try to the manage buildings by the how can I say the can I say not rebuilding, how can I say remodeling, I would say sometimes. I mean, this certain period of time, after a certain period of time, I think that is the main idea, I guess. And also for the tolerance again, that's very difficult, especially in Korea. That's why I have a very enclosed world here. I don't want the climate effect to the the structure. Yeah. So yeah, I hope that can be the answer.
Good,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
So I think, are there any size limitations to how big you can make a tree out of wood? I mean, your tree specifically. The only thing I can think of is the machine on which the parts are created. I think it's probably the answer.
Yes. Yeah, you have an answer. Yeah. Yeah, that's the first thing, and second thing is you have to you can handle it, right? Yeah, it doesn't have. I mean, I used the 3 centimeter thickness. That is slightly thicker than 1 inch. So I mean, that is actually really heavy. So yeah, the maximum size is a 2.4 meter. I think it's 8 inch. I think the same as in America. So that's the maximum size of plywood I can get in Korea. But I mean, it shouldn't be more than I think 1.5 meters, something like that. In that case, you cannot you can lift it. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Is there a special species of wood plywood you're using?
Yeah, I prefer to use the birch, right? The birch. That is it has a very strong. I think it's just one of the strongest. The plywood. I had a conversation with the researcher in. He works for the government in National Forest Administration, something like that. So So he said the birch plywood could be the probably the best thing to me. Yeah, birch plywood from I think Finland. Yeah, and yeah, Russia is bad. Yeah. Finland is good. Yeah.
So in terms of we've got to be very obviously an hour and a half having a really fascinating lecture.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
I'm going to make So I was really challenged. I love the question that you asked yourself when you said like I don't like how things are.
In contemporary architecture, how architecture has been commodified, and it is an extraordinarily difficult question to ask. And I do that. I ask that question actually to some students in my history class, and I don't really have an answer. I really like how through your work and the complexity of your work, how you deal with history, how you deal with technology, tectonics, all of these things at the same time, you really have a really strong answer to that. Right? It's a unique one, so it doesn't apply to everyone, but I think in itself it's incredibly strong. Right? I really appreciate and I think everyone was really happy. And before we clap and applaud, I would like to also thank Jay's wife and sons, his age here, and I know have been there sitting so nicely. I have kids on that age and they've been. So again, thanks the four of you. It was an extraordinary evening.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.